There are mountain passes in Japan that no longer appear on maps, paths once traced by merchants, pilgrims, and wandering monks have been softened by snow folded into stone, and slowly returned to silence. Pines grow where footsteps once echoed, wind replaces voices, and time, unobserved, settles like frost upon the road. Yet even in places forgotten by memory, light sometimes remains. High in the mountains, where valleys dissolve into mist and the air grows thin with cold, there is a past that only reveals itself at night. It is not marked by signs or torii gates, nor guarded by stone statues once smoothed by prayer. Instead, it is known by a single, steady glow, a lantern that burns when the world sleeps. The elders say the pass was once vital. Long ago, it carried travelers between provinces, threading villages together like beads on a cord. In winter, snowstorms would swallow the path whole, and those who walked it depended on small lights hung along the ridge to guide them safely through the dark. When storms came early, lanterns meant survival. When storms lingered, they meant hope. But years passed. Roads were carved elsewhere. Tunnels replaced trails. The mountain kept its silence, and the pass was left behind, except for one thing. Each night, as dusk settles and the sky deepens into blue, a single lantern is lit. No one remembers when it began again. Some say the lantern never stopped. Others claim it reappeared after a winter so harsh that even the mountains seemed to mourn. But those who have seen it agree on one detail: the light is not hurried, nor bright, nor meant to be seen from afar. It is patient. It waits. The lantern keeper arrives before the moon rises. Footsteps crunch softly against old snow. A figure moves along the path, slow and unburdened, as though walking not toward a destination, but into a rhythm long established. The lantern is lifted, adjusted, shielded from the wind. When it is set in place, the flame steadies, not flickering, not wavering, simply glowing, as if it understands its purpose. The keeper does not call out, does not look behind, does not ask who may come. The mountain listens. Snow falls in thin layers, reshaping the road inch by inch. Wind passes through cedar branches, brushing needles together in a sound like breath. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a distant owl settles into silence. Everything moves slowly here, as if the night itself has learned to walk with care. Some believe the lantern is for travelers who have lost their way. Others believe it is for those who have already passed beyond it. There are stories, quiet ones, of figures seen at the edge of the light, shapes that linger just beyond warmth, footprints that appear and vanish without leading anywhere. But the lantern keeper never turns to look. The lantern is lit regardless, for the living, for the unseen, for the road itself, because a path, even an empty one, remembers being walked. And so, as the night deepens and the cold settles gently over stone and pine, the lantern burns on, a small circle of warmth in a vast, patient dark. This is a story of that light, of the one who tends it, and of the mountain pass that still waits, quietly, for whoever may need to cross it. When the world grows still enough to listen, the journey begins. It reveals itself slowly, as if remembering what it is meant to be. At first there's only cold, a quiet, steady cold that settles into stone and bark alike. Then comes the faint sound of wind threading through cedars, brushing snow from branch to branch. Only after these does the road appear, emerging not through sight, but through feeling. It lies narrow and patient beneath the snow, winding between rising rock and descending forest. No markers announce its presence. No signs or carved stones guide the way. Yet it carries the unmistakable weight of having been walked for centuries, shaped not by tools but by footsteps, breath, and intention. In daylight, it seems ordinary, just another mountain path swallowed by winter. Travelers passing nearby might overlook it entirely, mistaking it for a natural break in the terrain. But when night settles and the sky deepens into indigo, the road becomes something else. It becomes aware. Cedars lean inward, their branches bowed beneath heavy snow, forming a passage that feels almost deliberate. The air grows still here, insulated from distant valleys and unseen villages. Sound behaves differently. Footsteps soften, echoes refuse to linger, and even the wind lowers its voice. Long ago, this road had a name. It was spoken carefully, never shouted. Merchants murmured it before setting out at dusk, fingers brushing the edges of their lanterns. Pilgrims repeated it like a charm, believing the syllables themselves could ward off misfortune. Children learned it through lullabies sung by hearthlight, unaware they were memorizing something sacred. But names require voices. As winters passed and fewer travelers dared the mountain after dark, the name was spoken less often. The road grew quieter. Snow erased the grooves left by carts. Moss softened the stones where hands once steadied themselves. Slowly, without ceremony, the name slipped away, leaving the path intact. But unspoken, still the road remembers. It remembers weight and balance. It remembers hesitation at the bend where the cliff drops away. It remembers laughter carried upward from travelers who did not yet understand how thin the night could become. Even now, beneath layers of frost and silence, the memory of movement lingers, not as sound, but as presence. Each evening, as the sun withdraws behind the peaks and shadows stretch long across the forest, the lantern keeper begins the ascent. There is no signal, no bell or announcement. The movement begins as naturally as breath, guided by a rhythm older than habit. Footsteps press into fresh snow with measured calm. A cloak shifts against the cold air, its fabric worn thin in places by countless nights. The lantern's flame glows softly, not bright enough to challenge the darkness, only enough to share space with it. The keeper does not hurry. There is no need. The mountain does not reward speed, only presence. Each step follows the curve of the road without hesitation, as though the path itself is guiding the way. Where the ground narrows, the keeper narrows their stride. Where the snow deepens, the pace slows. There is no resistance, only cooperation. Breath rises in pale clouds and fades before it can drift far. The cold does not bite, it simply exists. It presses gently against skin and fabric, reminding the body of its edges. Somewhere beneath the snow, stone waits patiently, unchanged by centuries of passing feet. Halfway along the pass, the air changes. The forest thins slightly, and the land falls away on one side into a slope hidden by mist. Snow drifts endlessly into that unseen depth, dissolving before it can touch anything solid. This is a place that once demanded care. Travelers used to pause here, adjusting their lanterns, steadying their breath, whispering prayers they were not sure they believed. Now, a single lantern stands at the edge. Its post is old, the wood darkened by weather and time. Snow gathers around its base, softening its outline. The flame within burns with remarkable steadiness, untouched by the wind that moves through the trees. The keeper pauses here each night, not out of necessity, but respect. A gloved hand adjusts the lantern slightly, aligning it with the curve of the path. The light spills across the snow in a gentle arc, illuminating just enough to reveal the edge without disturbing the vastness beyond. The darkness does not retreat. It remains deep and layered, patient and complete. The light does not attempt to conquer it. Instead, the two coexist, flame and shadow sharing the space without conflict. There is no fear here. Fear belongs to those who resist the night. The mountain does not. It accepts darkness as it accepts snowfall, silence, and time. Everything has its place. Everything arrives when it is meant to. The keeper lingers only a moment longer, listening, not for sound, but for balance. Satisfied, they continue onward, the lantern swaying gently with each step. As the keeper moves on, the road seems to settle behind them. Snow drifts softly into footprints, erasing evidence of passage almost as soon as it is made. Branches shift gently, allowing the cloak to pass without catching. Stones lie still beneath the surface, no longer threatening misstep. It is not obedience, it is recognition. The road knows the one who tends it, and as the lantern's glow fades behind the next bend, the mountain holds its breath, waiting for the rest of the night to unfold. Beyond the bend where the lantern's glow thins, the road grows quieter still. Here, the cedars stand farther apart, their trunks rising like dark pillars against the night sky. Snow gathers in wide, undisturbed blankets between them, smooth as unmarked paper. The wind drifts through this place more freely, carrying with it the faint scent of frost and stone. It is a stretch of the pass where the mountain listens closely, where even the smallest sound seems to linger longer than it should. The lantern keeper walks on. There are no spoken prayers, no whispered invocations. The rhythm of footsteps is enough. Each step presses briefly into the snow before being reclaimed by falling flakes. The lantern sways gently at the keeper's side, its light brushing the ground with every movement, then retreating again. The flame seems almost aware of its task, never flaring, never dimming too far, steady as a heartbeat that knows its own pace. Those who once traveled this road believed the lantern keeper to be an ordinary figure, a caretaker appointed by a village long vanished, a solitary watchman who chose night work over sleep, a presence so consistent it faded into expectation, like the sound of wind through trees or the slow passage of clouds. But mountains do not preserve the ordinary, they keep only what endures. Long before the keeper's footsteps became part of the night, travelers spoke of how the snow behaved strangely along this path. Storms that buried entire ridges would soften here, their weight falling quieter, slower. Blizzards that howled across peaks would pass above the road, leaving it wrapped instead in hushed snowfall. Even avalanches seemed to hesitate, as though uncertain whether they were permitted to cross. Some said the mountain itself bowed to the lantern. Others said it was the keeper who bowed to the mountain, night after night, until the two could no longer be separated. The keeper does not recall when the walking began. Memory, here, is not a straight line. It loops and settles like drifting snow, layering moments until they lose their edges. There was a time when hands were younger, when breath fogged more sharply in the cold. There was a time when the lantern felt heavier, its handle unfamiliar in the palm, its glow something that needed constant attention. Those memories remain, but without urgency. What matters is the walking. A certain point along the road, the keeper slows. The air grows denser, as though sound itself has weight. Snowflakes fall more sparsely here, each one distinct in the lantern's glow. This is a place travelers once feared, not because danger waited, but because answers did. Those who arrived carrying regret often felt it sharpen here, brought into focus by the quiet. Those burdened by grief found it rising to the surface, undeniable, impossible to outrun. And those who walked with empty hearts sometimes felt something settle within them. Not joy, not sorrow, but a calm warmth that made the next steps easier. The lantern keeper pauses. The light is lifted slightly, held steady. The flame reflects in the keeper's eyes, eyes that have watched countless nights pass without question. The mountain offers no voice, no vision. It does not need to. Stillness is its language. Snow continues to fall, patient and unhurried. Time loosens its grip. For a moment that cannot be measured, nothing moves except the faint breathing of the night itself. Then the keeper lowers the lantern. The pause has served its purpose. Whatever needed acknowledging has been acknowledged. Whatever needed releasing has been released. The road accepts this without judgment, without comment. Far below, beyond the forest and the bends of the pass, faint glimmers appear, distant village lights, softened by snow and mist. They flicker like memories seen through closed eyes. They do not call to the keeper. They never have. The lantern is not meant to guide the keeper home. It is meant to guide others through. Once, A traveler lost to exhaustion stumbled upon this road just before dawn. Snow blinded his path, and his own lantern had long since gone dark. He later spoke of a single flame appearing ahead, not bright, not beckoning, simply present. He followed it without thinking, placing one foot after another, surrendering the need to choose, until the mountain loosened its grip. By morning, the lantern was gone. The road, once again, bore no sign of passage. The keeper does not remember this moment, or perhaps remembers it as all moments, as part of the night's endless fabric. Memory is not kept as stories here, but as continuity. The walking continues because it has always continued. The flame remains because it has never been allowed to fade. Snow gathers more thickly now. The final stretch of the pass approaches, where the road descends and the forest begins to open toward lower ground. The lantern's light reaches a little farther, touching the first outlines of stones long buried and forgotten, markers placed by hands that no longer exist. The keeper slows once more. The lantern is set into its final post for the night. The flame settles, casting a gentle pool of light that will last until morning, long after footsteps have turned back into silence. The road seems to relax, as though relieved of its duty. Above, the mountain exhales. The lantern keeper turns, cloak shifting softly, and begins the return. Not hurried, not delayed. The night has been tended. The road has been remembered, and as snow drifts steadily down, covering all signs of care, the mountain keeps watch, knowing the lantern will return again when darkness calls. The descent from the mountain pass begins quietly. Here, the road softens beneath the snow, its stones worn smooth by centuries of passage. Pines thin into scattered trees, their branches reaching outward rather than upward, as if weary from holding the sky for so long. The air changes subtly, less sharp, less demanding, carrying with it the faint suggestion of warmth that does not yet exist, but promises itself somewhere below. It is along this stretch that the lantern keeper walks most slowly, not because the path is difficult, but because it remembers. Every traveler who has ever passed through this place has left something behind. A hesitation before the climb, a regret carried silently in the chest, a hope pressed into the earth with the weight of tired feet. These things do not disappear. They settle into the road, layering themselves like snowfall upon snowfall, until the ground itself becomes a quiet archive of passing lives. The lantern's glow brushes over the path, and for a moment the snow seems to shift, not with motion, but with recognition. Long before the road curved into its present shape, the slope was a resting place. Pilgrims paused here to steady their breathing before the ascent. Merchants counted their bundles and adjusted their loads, listening for signs of weather. Messengers knelt briefly, touching foreheads to the cold ground in silent prayer, knowing the mountain ahead would demand more than strength. The keeper knows this without remembering how. There are nights when the lantern's light reveals faint impressions beneath the snow, not footprints, but suggestions of them, as if the earth recalls where feet once pressed down, uncertain or resolute, afraid or determined. The keeper pauses beside one such place, lowering the lantern slightly, allowing the flame to steady. The snow here lies thinner, exposing darker earth beneath. Shadows stretch and contract with the lantern's movement, slow and rhythmic, like breathing. There is no sound, yet the moment feels full weighted with what once passed through. Some travelers arrived carrying grief so heavy it bent their backs. The mountain took it gently, dulling its sharp edges until it could be carried again. Others came driven by ambition, steps quick and restless, only to leave quieter, slower, changed by the climb. The road does not judge what is brought to it. It only holds what cannot yet be released. The lantern keeper remains still long enough for the night to settle around them. Snow begins to fall again, larger flakes now, unhurried, drifting downward as if choosing where to land. Each one catches the lantern's glow briefly before disappearing into the ground, indistinguishable from those that came before. Farther down the path, a wooden marker emerges from the snow. Its surface is worn smooth, its carving softened by years of wind and weather. Once it pointed clearly toward villages, shrines, and resting places. Now it points only inward, toward memory. The keeper approaches and lifts the lantern so its light falls upon the marker. The wood absorbs the glow, revealing faint traces of ink long faded, names that no longer exist, directions that lead nowhere. Still, the marker remains. So does the keeper. A wind moves through the thinning trees, low and steady. It carries no voices, no warnings, only the sound of distance, of places far away continuing without knowledge of this quiet road. The lantern's flame leans slightly, then straightens, as if acknowledging the presence of the wind without resistance. The keeper resumes walking. Each step is deliberate, grounded. The lantern sways gently, keeping time with the movement. There is comfort in repetition, in knowing that this path has been walked before and will be walked again, regardless of who carries the light. At the edge of this stretch, the forest opens into a shallow clearing. Snow gathers untouched here, forming smooth, rounded shapes beneath the moonlight. The keeper crosses it slowly. No footprints remain behind. The lantern's glow skims across the surface, then fades as the trees close in once more. Somewhere beyond the clearing, the sound of water begins to emerge. Not rushing, not loud, but present. A stream winding its way through rock and root, following its own ancient ascent. The keeper pauses again, listening. Water, like the road, remembers. The lantern is raised slightly, illuminating the path ahead. Snow reflects the light softly, creating the illusion of depth where none exists. The night feels close now, not heavy, but attentive, as if aware of the keeper's passage. The mountain pass lies behind. The lower world waits ahead, and between them the lantern keeper continues, carrying not direction, but reassurance, not answers, but passage. The night accepts this without question. The stream runs parallel to the road for a while, hidden just beyond the trees. Its presence is known more than seen, a quiet movement beneath ice and stone, carrying water from higher places toward valleys that have not yet woken. Even when buried beneath snow, it announces itself softly, a low, continuous murmur that settles into the night like a memory that refuses to fade. The lantern keeper walks beside it, the lantern's glow occasionally slipping between the trunks to catch the faint shimmer of frozen edges. In winter, the stream speaks differently. Ice forms along its surface in thin, uneven sheets, leaving narrow paths where water continues to move beneath. The sound is gentle, not the voice of rushing water, but something slower, more deliberate, as though the mountain itself is breathing in its sleep. Each subtle shift beneath the ice sends a soft echo upward, barely audible, yet deeply felt. The keeper slows near the bend where the road curves closer to the water. Here, long ago, travelers would stop to wash their hands, even in the cold. Some believed it helped them leave behind what they could not carry further. Others said the stream remembered names, and that if one listened carefully, it might whisper them back on lonely nights when the road felt endless. The lantern is lowered again. Light meets water, and the surface responds with quiet reflection. The flame trembles slightly, distorted by ice and movement, becoming something softer, less defined. It no longer looks like fire, but like a thought, fragile, shifting, alive only for the moment it is held. The keeper watches without intention, without judgment, allowing the image to exist and fade as it wishes. Time does not move quickly here. Snow continues to fall, but gently, now more a settling than a descent. It gathers along the lantern's frame, clinging briefly to metal and glass before slipping away, leaving no trace behind. The keeper's breath rises in pale clouds, dissolving almost as soon as they appear, as though the night accepts them without question. There are nights when no one comes. No footsteps approach from above. No voices call out from the lower road. No lanterns flicker in response from beyond the trees. Still, the lantern keeper walks, because the path exists whether it is used or not. Light, after all, is not meant only for those who ask for it. Farther along, the road narrows once more. Trees lean closer together, their branches forming a loose arch overhead. Snow rests heavily on needles and bark, bending them into patient shapes that seem to listen as the keeper passes. The lantern's glow travels ahead, outlining the curve of the way, revealing each step just before it is taken. In this corridor of trees, the air feels different, thicker, quieter, as though sound itself has learned to slow. The keeper senses it instinctively, adjusting their pace without conscious thought. Some places ask for gentler presence, for movement that does not disturb what rests unseen. The lantern responds as well. Its flame steadies, becoming smaller, calmer, not dimmer, simply focused. It casts fewer shadows now, but deeper ones, drawing the night closer rather than pushing it away. The road seems to lean toward the light, accepting it as part of itself. The keeper passes beneath the arch of branches. Here the path feels older. Stone edges show through the snow, worn smooth by countless crossings. The ground dips slightly, then rises again, forming a natural threshold. Many who walked this way felt it without knowing why, a quiet sense that something had been left behind, and something else, unnamed and gentle, had been accepted in its place. The lantern keeper crosses without pause. Beyond the trees, the land opens once more. The stream drifts away from the road, its voice fading into distance, leaving behind a deeper stillness. In the valley below, faint lights flicker, not close enough to warm the air, but close enough to promise rest. Roof lines and fences remain indistinct, softened by snowfall and night. The lower village waits, wrapped in sleep. The keeper does not hurry. The lantern's purpose is not arrival. It is continuity, a steady presence along the way, reminding the road, and those who walk it, the passage is possible even when the destination cannot yet be seen. Snow deepens beneath each step, muffling sound entirely. Even the memory of flowing water fades as the road curves away from the stream. Only the lantern remains, a quiet circle of light moving through blue-shadowed night. For a moment, the keeper stops and turns slightly, lifting the lantern toward the path behind. The mountain pass is no longer visible. Trees and snow have swallowed it completely, yet the keeper knows it remains, patient and unchanged, waiting for the next traveler to begin their descent. The lantern is lowered once more. Forward, the road continues, and with it, the light. Morning never truly reaches the mountain pass in winter. What arrives instead is a gentler thing, a soft loosening of night, a thinning of shadow. Darkness does not disappear so much as it withdraws, leaving behind pale layers of blue and silver that settle quietly over the land. The peaks remain half hidden, their outlines blurred by drifting mist, and the snow reflects what little light there is with the muted, patient glow. The lantern keeper is already moving when this change begins. Snow has settled more deeply now, smoothing the road into a single unbroken surface. The edges of the path have vanished beneath white, leaving no visible boundary between where the road ends and the forest begins. Yet the keeper does not hesitate. Each step falls where it has fallen countless times before, guided not by sight but by memory. Some paths imprint themselves. They are learned not in a single season, but across many winters, through repetition, through patience, through listening rather than effort. The body remembers what the eyes no longer can. It remembers where the ground rises slightly, where stone rests beneath the snow, where the earth dips gently before climbing again. The lantern swings at the keeper's side, its movement slow and steady. Light spills outward and long, stretched shapes that drift across the snow, folding and unfolding as the keeper walks. These shadows linger longer now. No longer swallowed immediately by darkness, they fade slowly, like breath clouding the air before dissolving. There is no birdsong. Winter has asked the forest to hold its voice, and the trees obey. Cedars stand quietly, their branches heavy with snow, needles dusted with frost so fine it resembles ash. Even the wind seems reluctant to disturb the stillness, moving only when necessary, as if aware that this hour belongs to quiet. The keeper passes a place where the road widens. Long ago, travelers would rest here. Some set down their packs. Others stood silently, turning in slow circles to take in the peaks rising around them, the shapes softened by distance and fog. In warmer seasons, this place carried the scent of grass and stone warmed by the sun. Now it holds only cold and memory. The lantern is raised slightly. Light brushes across the snow, revealing faint depressions, old footprints, nearly erased. They are not recent. Snow has filled them many times over, compacted by freeze and thaw, reshaped by falling flakes and quiet nights. Yet they remain. Subtle differences in texture hints that someone once passed this way. The keeper pauses. There is no need to follow these marks. They do not lead anywhere now. But the keeper acknowledges them all the same, standing still, lantern held steady, as if offering recognition. Many have walked this road. Many carried burdens heavier than the cold. Some sought shelter. Others fled from something they could not name. A few came simply because the road existed, and something within them felt compelled to follow it. The mountain accepted them all. The keeper lowers the lantern and moves on. As the road narrows again, the forest draws closer. Snow-laden branches hang low, forming gentle barriers that brush against the keeper's shoulders. Each touch releases a small fall of powder, whispering softly as it meets the ground. The sound is intimate, close, the kind of sound that draws attention inward. Breath becomes noticeable. The steady rise and fall within the chest aligns with the rhythm of footsteps, slow and even. There is no reason to hurry this hour. Morning will arrive when it is ready. Ahead, the path slopes downward. Beyond it lies another stretch of road, another section of night loosening its hold. The lantern continues to glow less bright now, but no less necessary. In this in-between time, when darkness has not yet fully released the world, even small lights matter. The keeper walks on. Behind, the mountain keeps its silence. Ahead, the road waits. The keeper does not look back, not because there is nothing behind, but because the road has already accepted what is past. Snow settles quickly in this place, smoothing over footprints as if the mountain itself prefers not to remember exact shapes. What matters is not where the keeper has been, but that the light continues forward. The lantern swings slightly now, responding to the rhythm of the walk. Its glow breathes in small pulses, brightening and softening, never flickering wildly, never demanding attention. It is a patient light, a light that has learned how to endure long nights without asking for anything in return. The path narrows once more. Trees lean closer here, their branches arching overhead until the sky is reduced to a pale ribbon. Snow rests thick along the limbs, heavy enough to bow them downward, but never quite enough to break them. Every so often, a small drift slides free, falling soundlessly into the darkness below. The keeper feels these movements without seeing them. A shift in the air, a soft settling, the forest adjusting itself. This is how the mountain speaks, not in words, but in weight and balance. The keeper's breath forms a faint cloud, then disappears. Each inhale is slow, deliberate. Each exhale carries warmth outward, only to be reclaimed by the cold moments later. The body has long since learned how to conserve itself, how to move without waste. There is no hurry here. Time stretches differently along the pass. Minutes loosen their grip. Hours pass without insisting on being counted. The lantern keeper walks within this quiet suspension, neither ahead of time nor behind it. A bend in the trail. The keeper pauses, not because the way is unclear, but because this point has always asked for stillness. A marker stone rises from the snow just off the path, its surface worn smooth by countless winters. No writing remains upon it. Whatever names or symbols it once held have long since been erased by wind, frost, and patience. Yet the stone endures, half buried, unmoving. The lantern's light brushes across it briefly. For a moment, the keeper stands beside the stone, sharing the same silence. Snow drifts between them, settling softly on shoulders, on stone, on memory. Travelers once stopped here to rest. Some turned back, some continued on. The mountain remembers all of them, though it speaks of none. The keeper steps forward again. Beyond the marker, the air grows thinner, the cold sharpens, not painfully, but with clarity. Thoughts that linger too long dissolve on their own. What remains is simple the steady placement of feet, the gentle weight of the lantern, the quiet companionship of the road. Far below, unseen and unfelt, the world continues in its own restless rhythm. Fires are lit, doors are closed, voices rise and fall, but none of that reaches this height. Here, only the mountain's breathing matters. The keeper's footsteps grow quieter still as the snow deepens. Each step presses downward, meeting resistance, then releasing. The body adjusts instinctively, shifting balance, conserving strength. This is not effort. It is cooperation. The lantern's flame responds to the thinning air, drawing inward slightly, then stabilizing. It has learned this place well. A gentle wind moves through the trees, barely enough to stir the branches. Snow lifts and drifts, turning the forest into a slow-moving veil. Shapes blur at the edges, distances soften. In this moment, the path seems endless, not because it stretches infinitely, but because it exists only as far as the lantern reveals, and that is enough. The keeper does not need to see where the road ends, only where the next step begins. With a quiet breath, the lantern is lifted a fraction higher. Light spreads forward, touching snow, stone, bark, air. The mountain accepts it without resistance. And so the keeper continues, steady and unhurried, carrying warmth through the cold, presence through silence, and a light that does not seek an audience. Beyond the stone walls, the mountain opens into a broad saddle between peaks. Here the wind moves differently. It does not rush or howl, nor does it press itself forward with urgency. Instead, it drifts in long, measured breaths, brushing across the snow with a sound so faint it feels imagined rather than heard. Powder lifts briefly into the air, catching pale light, then settles again, as if the land itself is sighing and returning to rest. The lantern keeper steps into this open space without hesitation. This place is known not for danger, but for uncertainty. Travelers often feel exposed here, suddenly aware of the vastness around them, skies stretching wide and empty, slopes falling away on either side, no trees close enough to offer shelter. Even those familiar with the mountains sometimes feel their pace change. Their steps quicken without realizing why, as though the openness itself were asking something of them. The keeper does not hurry. The lantern's glow seems smaller here, its circle of warmth gently absorbed by the surrounding pale. Still, it remains steady, a quiet point of amber against the slow movement of clouds overhead. Snowflakes drift past the flame, dissolving into nothing before they can touch it, each one vanishing without sound. Each step is taken with the same quiet care as before. The path across the saddle is not marked by stones or posts. It reveals itself only through subtle changes, a slight firmness beneath the snow, a gentle slope that guides the foot without demanding attention. It is a road that must be felt rather than seen, remembered rather than recognized. The keeper follows it easily. Somewhere far below, wind threads its way through lower valleys, stirring branches and brushing rooftops. That sound does not reach this place. The mountain has lifted itself above such movement, holding the saddle apart like a held breath. The lantern keeper pauses near the center of the pass, not because of fatigue, not because of doubt, but because this is where one listens. The lantern is raised slightly, its light touching the snow ahead. In its glow, the surface sparkles with countless tiny reflections, each one catching and releasing warmth in an instant. No two shine the same way. No two linger. The keeper watches them without counting. This place has known many pauses before. Travelers have stopped here under skies that darken too quickly. Fog has gathered thick enough to erase all direction, turning the world into a single pale surface with no edges. Some waited, uncertain whether to turn back or continue forward, feeling the weight of choice settle heavier than the snow itself. The mountain remembers those moments. It remembers the tightness in shoulders, the shallow breaths drawn too quickly, the way fear can make even stillness feel loud. Those traces remain, pressed gently into the land, softened over time but never entirely erased. Yet the mountain also remembers calm. The keeper stands quietly, lantern held close, breath slow and even. Cold air enters and leaves the body without resistance. The wind passes around the figure without tugging, as if recognizing something familiar and choosing not to interfere. Time stretches here, not into minutes or hours, but into space, a widening of awareness that softens edges. Thoughts drift through like thin clouds, ungraspable and unimportant. There's nothing to decide, nothing to solve, nothing waiting beyond the next step that has not already been walked before, only to stand. After a while, though after his little meaning in a place like this, the keeper moves again. The lantern swings gently, tracing a slow arc of light across the snow. Footsteps resume, steady and unhurried, following the faint incline toward the far side of the saddle. Each step leaves a brief impression, soon softened by falling snow until it becomes part of the surface once more. The sky above shifts almost imperceptibly. Gray light grows lighter, though the sun remains hidden behind distant ridges. The world feels suspended between night and morning, neither claiming dominance, both content to share the moment. The keeper walks as if this balance might last forever. As the path narrows again, the wind begins to change. It gathers its voice slightly, not to speak, but to remind the traveler that movement continues. Snow lifts from the ground in thin veils, trailing behind the keeper's steps before settling again, leaving no sign that anything passed through. The lantern flame flickers once, then steadies. It always steadies. This stretch of the road offers no markers, no shrines, no stones placed deliberately to guide the way. It gives no reassurance beyond the simple truth of the ground beneath each step and the light held gently in hand. The keeper does not ask for more. The body remembers how to walk. The hands remember how to hold the light. The mountain remembers the path even when it cannot be seen. And so the lantern keeper continues across the open pass, leaving behind only warmth and quiet, both of which fade softly into the falling snow, returning the place to its patient stillness. On the far side of the saddle, the land begins to slope downward. It is not a sharp descent, nor a sudden change. The mountain does not hurry those who walk upon it. Instead, the ground lowers itself gradually, inviting the traveler to follow without effort, as if gravity itself has softened out of courtesy. The lantern keeper feels the shift immediately. The body responds before the mind does. Steps lengthen by the smallest measure. Weight settles forward in a way that feels natural, familiar, as though this road has been walked many times before, even if memory cannot recall when. Snow grows a little deeper here, not piled or drifted, but settled, undisturbed for long stretches, holding the shape of each footfall for a few quiet moments before smoothing itself away again. The path accepts the keeper's presence, then releases it without resistance. The lantern's light spills ahead, revealing the curve of the road as it winds between low stone outcrops. These rocks rise from the snow like old thoughts, rounded, patient, unconcerned with time. Frost coats their surfaces in thin white lines, tracing patterns no hand could repeat. They do not announce themselves. They simply are. The keeper passes between them, close enough that the lantern's glow warms their edges for a breath. Then they are cold again. The wind follows more closely now. No longer pausing entirely at the edge of hearing, it moves alongside the path, brushing against the keeper's sleeves, whispering softly without words. It does not urge forward or pull back. It does not question. It simply accompanies, content to share the descent. Somewhere below, far beyond sight, lies another valley. It may hold a village or a shrine or nothing at all. The keeper does not consider this. The lantern is not lit for destinations. It is lit for the space between them, for the quiet that exists only while one is still walking. Snow begins to fall more steadily, not heavy, not urgent, just enough to soften the world further. Each flake drifts down with its own patience, settling onto shoulders, hair, the rim of the lantern glass. As they pass through the lantern's glow, they turn briefly golden, then vanish into white again. The flame remains undisturbed. Breath fogs the air in slow, rounded clouds. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm matches the steps now. No effort is required to keep it. Thought thins, loosening its grip, spreading outward until awareness no longer rests on any single thing. The path curves again. Here, faint traces of old footprints appear beneath the new snow impressions left by travelers long gone. They are shallow and incomplete, visible only when the lantern's light strikes at the right angle. Some step wide, some step close. Some hesitate before continuing. The keeper does not follow them. They are reminders, not directions. Each traveler walks their own version of the road, even when paths overlap. The mountain accepts all of them without preference, without memory. As the descent continues, the air grows slightly warmer. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough that the cold loosens its grip. Snow clings less tightly to fabric. Movement feels easier, lighter, as if the body itself has been quietly unburdened. The lantern swings a little more freely now. With each step downward, the world seems to settle deeper into itself. Sounds soften further, absorbed by the thickening snow. Even the wind lowers its voice, content to drift rather than speak. Somewhere nearby, a tree sheds its weight. Snow slides from branch to ground in a muted hush barely louder than breath. The lantern's glow reaches it just in time, catching the falling white before it disappears into shadow. The keeper slows for a moment, not to observe, but to allow the moment to finish happening. Then the path continues. A small marker stone emerges beside the road, nearly buried. It bears no carving, no symbol of ownership or faith. Its purpose is simple. It marks a place where someone once decided this was enough. Enough effort, enough distance, enough uncertainty. The lantern pauses beside it. Light touches stone. Stone remains stone. The keeper does not bow, does not linger. A pause is enough. Beyond this point, the path bends out of sight, disappearing into a shallow hollow where snow gathers thickest. The lantern's glow reaches only so far, but that is all it has ever needed to do. One step, then another. The mountain does not reveal what comes next, and the keeper does not ask. Snow continues to fall. The road continues to descend, and somewhere in the quiet ahead, the night opens itself patiently, ready to receive another gentle passage of light. The descent leads into a shallow hollow where the mountain gathers its quiet. Here, The snow lies deeper than anywhere else along the pass, untouched by wind or footsteps. It fills the low ground like water that has forgotten how to move, settling into every curve and crease of the land. Each step sinks gently, then releases, as though the earth itself exhales beneath the lantern keeper's weight. The lantern's glow changes in its place. Light no longer travels far. It does not stretch outward or reach ahead with purpose. Instead, it settles close, thickened by falling snow and the rounded shape of the hollow. The glow gathers at the keeper's feet, forming a soft pool that feels contained, protected, as if the darkness beyond has agreed not to intrude. Shadows shorten here. They soften, losing their edges, dissolving into one another until they no longer resemble shapes at all. The hollow seems to blur the distinction between light and dark, allowing neither to dominate. Sound fades first. Footsteps make no echo. Snow absorbs them entirely, leaving only the faintest suggestion of movement. Not a sound, but the memory of one. Even the keeper's breath grows quieter, muffled by the depth of the basin and the heavy stillness that presses gently from all sides. It feels like walking inside a held moment. The lantern keeper slows without intending to. The body senses the hush and responds instinctively, honoring it. Each step becomes deliberate, careful, as though moving too quickly might fracture the silence that blankets the hollow so completely. Snowflakes fall straight down now. No drifting, no swirling. They descend in quiet lines, settling one by one onto the ground, onto the lantern's rim, onto the keeper's shoulders and sleeves. The flame glows steadily within its glass, untroubled by the cold, as if it too understands that this place does not welcome disturbance. The hollow curves inward, forming a natural basin where the mountain seems to listen to itself. Here, the keeper feels the absence of time more strongly than anywhere else along the pass. Minutes and seconds lose their edges. There is no sense of before or after, only the slow procession of breath, light, and movement. The lantern's glow reveals small details near the ground, the rounded tops of buried stones. The faint outline of grass is bent beneath the snow's weight. Shallow ridges left by animals that passed through long before night fully settled. None of them remain for long. Snow fills each mark patiently, smoothing the surface until nothing suggests it was ever disturbed. The hollow teaches the mountain's oldest lesson that all traces fade, and that fading itself is gentle. The keeper pauses near the center of the hollow, not from fatigue, not from hesitation. The stillness invites it. The lantern is held steady, its handle warm against gloved fingers. Light pools softly at the keeper's feet, forming a small circle of warmth in the cold. Beyond it, the world dissolves into pale shadow and falling snow, a quiet that feels complete rather than empty. Breath rises, then falls. The mountain does not speak here, but it does not remain silent either. In this hollow, the keeper senses the presence of countless crossings, travelers who once passed through with lanterns of their own, flames long extinguished, paths long erased. Their silence lingers, not heavy, not sorrowful, simply complete. The keeper does not feel alone, nor does the keeper feel watched. It is a shared quiet, held by the land itself, offered freely to anyone willing to move slowly enough to receive it. Snow continues to fall, gathering on the keeper's cloak, softening edges, muting color. The lantern's flame flickers once, then steadies again, as though reassured by the depth of the stillness. After a time, how long is impossible to say, the keeper shifts weight forward. The pause ends naturally, without decision or thought. Movement resumes as softly as it stopped. At the far edge of the hollow, the ground begins to rise again, only slightly. The lantern's glow stretches forward just enough to reveal the faint curve of the path as it climbs out of the basin. Sound does not return yet. The keeper takes another step, then another, carrying the quiet forward, knowing it will follow for a while longer before gently releasing its hold. As the lantern keeper climbs from the hollow, the mountain exhales. It is not a sound at first, not something the ear can catch. It is a loosening, a gentle release in the air, as though the stillness that held the hollow has slowly opened its hand. The pressure of silence eases, and the night grows lighter without becoming loud. Snow no longer presses so deeply beneath each step. Where before it swallowed movement, it now yields, softly allowing the keeper's passage without resistance. Each footfall settles and fades, leaving no trace that insists on being remembered. The path begins to return, not all at once, not clearly, only in fragments. A curve revealed by the lantern's glow, a rise suggested by the way the ground inclines beneath the soul, a narrowing where the mountain draws closer, attentive but calm, nothing sharp, nothing demanding, only the sense of direction gently restored. The lantern's light reaches farther now. It stretches ahead in a quiet arc, brushing the snow-covered ground and uncovering its subtle contours. The slow slope of the pass, the soft shoulders of the mountain rising on either side. Shadows form again, but they remain kind, never abrupt, never dark enough to unsettle the heart. The keeper walks on. Breath becomes audible once more. It rises and falls in a steady rhythm, pale in the cold air before dissolving into the night. Each breath leaves, returns, leaves again, as unhurried as the steps that carry the keeper forward. Snow touches the lantern glass, not with force, not with urgency, only a gentle tapping like fingertips testing the surface of warmth. The sound is faint, almost imagined, yet comforting in its consistency. The wind follows last. It arrives quietly, a mild current slipping through the pass. It carries the scent of pine and cold stone, of distant slopes buried beneath layers of untouched snow. It moves across the keeper's roads without disturbance, then continues onward, unconcerned, as though it has always known the way. The lantern keeper adjusts their grip, not because the lantern is heavy, but because the body remembers how it likes to carry light. The weight is familiar. It steadies the arm. It anchors the movement. It reminds the keeper of purpose without needing to say a word. The path curves. To one side, the mountain rises into shadow, its surface smooth with age and snow shaped by centuries of quiet endurance. To the other, the land falls away into darkness so deep it feels endless. The lantern does not attempt to reach into that depth. Some distances are not meant to be crossed by light. The keeper's gaze remains forward. Each step is placed with care, not from fear, but from respect. The pass is narrow here, though never dangerous. It asks only for attention, for presence, for a traveler who listens as much as they move. Snow continues to fall. Now it drifts again, caught by the soft breath of the wind. Flakes appear briefly within the lantern's glow, turning once or twice before dissolving into the darkness beyond. Each one arrives without expectation, then leaves without regret. Time stretches. Moments lose their edges. Progress is no longer measured by distance, but by rhythm, step, breath, light. There is comfort in this repetition. The body relaxes into it. The mind follows. Thought thins, spreading out like mist until it becomes indistinguishable from the night itself. The lantern keeper does not hurry. The night is long. The path is patient, and the lantern burns without flicker. The mountain responds. The wind softens further. The snowfall steadies. The silence settles into balance, not empty, not heavy, but full in its own quiet way. This is the kind of silence that holds memory. The pass has known many travelers, some moved with fear, some with hope, some with nothing at all. Their footsteps have faded, but the mountain remembers the feeling of them, the weight of movement, the warmth of breath, the light that once passed through. Tonight it remembers again. Ahead, the path continues upward, disappearing into darkness just beyond the lantern's reach. The keeper walks toward it without expectation. There is no destination that demands arrival, only the act of carrying light through the night.
The lantern glows, the snow falls,
and the mountain breathes in time with each careful step forward. The higher the lantern keeper climbs, the quieter the night becomes. Not emptier, quieter. Sound does not vanish here, it thins, stretches, and settles into the snow as if absorbed by the mountain itself.
Footsteps no longer echo.
Breath barely rises. Even the wind seems to pause between movements, choosing its moments carefully, as though aware that too much disturbance would be out of place. This part of the pass is old, older than the paths drawn on maps, older than the stories told in villages below. The stones beneath the snow have felt countless crossings, pilgrims whose prayers still clung faintly to their sleeves, traders who carried more memory than goods, wanderers who never intended to arrive anywhere at all. Some crossed with purpose.
Others crossed because the mountain allowed it. The lantern keeper feels it immediately.
A gentle pressure, not on the body, but somewhere deeper, a subtle awareness that the ground remembers weight, remembers intent.
Each step leaves an impression that lingers longer than the print itself, as if the mountain listens not to footsteps, but to reasons for walking. The lantern's glow shifts here.
It does not dim, but it softens, spreading wider while reaching less far, as though the light itself has slowed. Snowflakes passing through it appear suspended, hanging briefly in the air before continuing their descent. The light no longer cuts the darkness, it rests within it, calm and patient. Along the edge of the path, shapes begin to form, not figures, not yet, but suggestions. The faint curve of stones arranged long ago, half swallowed by drifting white. The remains of a low wall, its purpose forgotten, its intention still faintly present. A single wooden post, weathered smooth by centuries of wind, standing without direction or warning. The keeper slows instinctively. This is a place of passing, but also of staying. Many who walked this route left something behind, a thought whispered into cold air, a regret released at the summit, a name spoken once into the dark and never again.
These were not losses. They were offerings.
The mountain kept them. The lantern keeper has learned not to listen too closely. Some memories wish only to be acknowledged, not disturbed. The keeper's role is not to gather them, nor to interpret them, but to walk among them gently, allowing the light to pass without forcing revelation.
Guidance, not intrusion.
Presence, not possession. Still, certain presences make themselves known, a sudden stillness at the edge of sight.
A warmth without source.
A pause in the snow's fall, as if time itself has taken a slow breath. The keeper does not turn toward these sensations. Turning would imply invitation. Instead, the lantern is lifted slightly higher, its glow steady and even, offering guidance without demand. Light does not chase the dark here, it simply exists alongside it, reminding the path of where it is. The snow deepens. Between the stones, each step sinks softly before releasing again, leaving behind only a faint impression that fills almost immediately. The rhythm becomes slow and meditative. Lift, place, release, a pattern that mirrors the keeper's breathing. In this rhythm, the body forgets effort.
The mind forgets urgency.
With each breath, the air grows colder, not sharply, not painfully, but cleanly, a cold that clears rather than numbs. It carries the faint scent of ice and old wood, of distant fires long extinguished. Somewhere far below, smoke once rose. Here only memory remains. The keeper's robe gathers frost along its edges. It does not weigh heavier for it. This climb has been made many times before, not in distance, but in intention.
The lantern keeper walks not toward a destination, but through a responsibility, one that renews itself with each nightfall.
Somewhere nearby, a bell chime sounds.
Once.
Then silence. The keeper stops, not in alarm, but in recognition.
The sound does not echo.
It does not linger. It exists for a single moment, complete and sufficient. It is the kind of sound that belongs to thresholds, to places where paths cross unseen, where something arrives and something else departs without ceremony. The lantern's flame flickers, then steadies. The snow resumes its fall. Whatever stirred has passed on. Satisfied with being noticed, the keeper bows slightly. A small gesture, almost imperceptible, not toward any presence in particular, but toward the mountain itself. Gratitude does not require an audience. The climb continues. Behind, the path grows indistinct, already softening beneath fresh snowfall. Ahead, the slope curves gently upward, vanishing into a veil of silver and blue. There is no urgency to reach the summit. The act of walking is the offering. The lantern keeper moves on. The mountain waits. The mountain does not reveal itself all at once. It opens slowly, the way dawn moves through fog, not as an arrival, but as a soft permission. The lantern keeper feels this change long before seeing it. The air grows denser, quieter, as though the path ahead has chosen to hold its breath. Snow continues to fall, but more gently now, each flake drifting with deliberate patience, settling without sound. The lantern's glow stretches forward, touching the snow in a widening arc. The light does not cut through the darkness.
It does not conquer it. Instead, it rests within it, like a memory returning to a familiar place.
The flame sways with each step, steady and calm, its warmth contained and respectful. This is how the lantern has always been carried, never hurried, never forced. The path narrows. Pine trees rise on either side, their branches bowed beneath the weight of snow accumulated over countless nights. Some bend low enough that the lantern's light brushes their needles, casting soft, shifting shadows against the white ground. Others stand tall and still, like quiet witnesses who have watched many pass through this mountain corridor without leaving a trace. The lantern keeper walks with measured steps. Each footfall presses gently into the snow, forming prints that linger only briefly before soft edges blur them into the surrounding whiteness. The mountain does not like to remember every traveler.
It remembers only those who walk with care.
The wind passes through the trees, not as a gust, but as a long, slow breath. It carries with it the scent of resin, cold stone, and distant ice, a fragrance that belongs only to high places in long winters. The lantern keeper inhales without effort, letting the breath settle naturally. There is no urgency here. The pass does not demand speed. Beyond a gentle bend, the path opens slightly, not into a wide clearing, but into a space where the trees stand farther apart, allowing the snow to rest undisturbed. The lantern's glow spreads more freely here, illuminating the faint contours of the land, a rise in the ground, a shallow dip where snow has gathered more deeply, the subtle curve of stone hidden beneath white. This place is unmarked.
No signposts point toward it. No shrine announces its presence.
And yet, the lantern keeper slows instinctively, guided by a feeling older than thought. The air changes again. It grows still, as though sound itself has paused. Snowflakes fall straight down now, no longer drifting sideways. Even the lantern's flame seems to soften, lowering its brightness just enough to blend with the quiet. At the center of the space rests a stone marker. It is not tall. It is not carved with care. It is simply there, a weathered slab rising modestly from the snow, its surface rounded by years of frost and thaw. Whatever markings once lived upon it have long since been smoothed away. The mountain has taken those words back, returning them to silence. The lantern keeper stops a short distance away. This is not a place to approach without awareness. The lantern's light reaches the stone and rests there, tracing its edges slowly. Shadows drift across its surface, subtle and unhurried, as though the stone itself is breathing in time with the mountain. Something lingers here, not a spirit in the way stories describe, no form, No voice, no presence that demands attention. What remains is quieter than that. It is a memory shaped by repetition, by devotion, that once stood here night after night without expectation. This is where someone waited, not briefly,
not anxiously,
but with a patience that stretched across seasons, across snowfall after snowfall. Someone once stood here with a lantern of their own, watching the pass, believing that light, simply light, was enough to guide others safely through. The mountain remembers this kind of faith.
The lantern keeper lowers their head slightly, acknowledging the place without stepping closer. The flame responds, softening further, warming without brightening.
It recognizes something familiar, not the stone, but the intention that once lived here. Snow drifts through the space in careful patterns. It does not settle heavily upon the stone. It touches, lingers for a moment, then melts away, leaving the surface exposed as if the mountain wishes it to remain seen just a little longer. For a brief while, the air grows gentler, not warm, but kind, the sort of kindness that exists in shared silence, in understanding that requires no exchange. The lantern keeper feels it pass through them, not as emotion, but as alignment, a quiet confirmation that this path has been walked before, and will be walked again. They are not alone in this duty.
They never have been.
The lantern keeper does not speak. There is nothing that needs to be said. Instead, they lift the lantern slightly and hold it steady, allowing its glow to rest upon the stone for a few slow breaths more. This is enough. The mountain does not require offerings, only remembrance. Gradually, the gentleness fades. The clearing settles back into itself. Snow resumes its steady descent, covering the stone once more, not burying it, but tucking it gently away beneath white silence. The lantern keeper turns back toward the path.
Behind them, the trees lean inward just enough to conceal the clearing again, as though it had never opened at all.
Ahead, the trail continues upward, winding toward higher ground where the air grows thinner and the night deeper. The lantern swings lightly at the keeper's side.
Its flame remains steady,
and the mountain, satisfied, allows them to pass. Far below the higher ridges, where the wind begins to soften and the snow grows less severe, the mountain path bends toward a narrow pass. Here, the forest thins, and the sky feels closer, pressing down like a heavy blanket of cloud and night. The stars are hidden, and the moon is only a suggestion behind layers of drifting white. This is where travelers lose their way, not because the road vanishes, but because it becomes uncertain. The stones beneath the snow shift slightly with each step. The curves of the trail grow subtle, almost shy, as if unwilling to reveal where they lead.
Distances stretch and compress without warning.
A step forward does not always feel like progress, and a pause does not always feel like rest. The mountain does not mislead out of cruelty. It simply does not hurry. A lone figure walks here now.
They move slowly, carefully, their footsteps shallow and uneven.
Each step sinks just enough to remind them of the cold beneath, but not enough to stop them. Their breath rises in pale clouds, forming and dissolving in the same motion, as though the night itself is breathing with them.
No lantern hangs from their hand.
No torch burns to guide them. Only darkness, and the faint memory of a road they once believed they knew. The traveler does not panic. They have already passed that stage, somewhere far behind them where the path still felt familiar. What remains now is a quiet heaviness, the kind that settles into the body after too many uncertain turns. Their shoulders sag slightly beneath the weight of snow gathering along the edges of their cloak. Their head remains bowed, not in defeat, but in careful attention to each step.
Snow clings without malice.
It gathers on fabric and hair as though simply curious, as though the mountain itself is gently reaching out, testing whether the traveler will continue. The forest watches in silence, tall trunks standing like patient witnesses. Even the wind seems reluctant to pass through, slowing as it threads between the trees. The traveler stops, The stillness here is deeper than before, not empty, but listening.
Sound does not echo, it settles.
The hush feels intentional, as though the mountain is waiting for something, or someone, to decide what comes next. The traveler closes their eyes. For a moment, they listen, not for footsteps or voices, but for reassurance, for something familiar, anything that suggests the path still remembers them. Their breathing slows, the cold presses closer, but does not bite. The night holds its distance. Then, faintly, impossibly, a glow. At first it seems like memory, a remnant of warmth recalled from some other night, some other road, a trick of tired eyes, a reflection of moonlight caught between branches. But the glow does not vanish when the traveler opens their eyes.
It remains.
Far up the path, beyond a gentle curve where the trail disappears into shadow, a soft amber light drifts through the falling snow. It does not flare. It does not cut through the darkness. It simply exists, steady, calm, unhurried, as though it has all the time in the world. The traveler's breath catches.
They do not call out.
Something about the light feels too deliberate for interruption. It does not announce itself. It does not rush forward to close the distance. It neither beckons nor retreats. It waits. Snow falls between the traveler and the glow, each flake briefly illuminated before returning to shadow. The light does not chase them away. It welcomes them into visibility one by one, as if acknowledging each moment of descent. The traveler takes a single step forward,
then another.
Their movements grow surer, guided not by urgency, but by trust. With each step, the path beneath their feet feels slightly more defined, as though the ground itself is remembering how to hold weight. The glow sharpens into form. It is not floating.
It is carried, a lantern,
held at a height meant to be seen, not to dominate. Its frame is simple, one smoothed by years of use. The flame inside moves gently, responding to motion but never wavering. It breathes with the night, steady and patient. The glow touches the ground just ahead of where the traveler walks, revealing stones and bends only as they are needed. No more, no less. The lantern keeper has not yet come fully into view. Only the light speaks for them, and somehow that is enough. The traveler feels something loosen in their chest. Not relief exactly, but permission. Permission to continue. Permission to believe they are not walking this mountain alone. The silence no longer presses.
It opens. They follow.
The snow no longer feels as heavy. The cold no longer feels indifferent. Each step aligns with the next, forming a quiet rhythm that matches the sway of the lantern ahead. The night does not recede, but it softens, allowing space for movement. Somewhere ahead, unseen but certain, the lantern keeper walks on. They do not look back. They do not need to. Their light has already found its purpose. The traveler walks on, and the sound of their steps gradually dissolves into the hush of snowfall. The path accepts them without resistance, folding their presence into the quiet the way water closes over a passing stone. The lantern keeper remains where they are.
For a time, they do not move.
The lantern hangs at their side, its flame steady but subdued, as if respecting the stillness that has settled once more over the mountain pass. Snow gathers softly upon the keeper's shoulders, upon the brim of their hat, upon the dark fabric of their cloak. They do not brush it away. The cold has long since lost its power to surprise them.
The keeper listens.
Not for footsteps, those have faded, but for the deeper sounds that only come when the world is nearly asleep. The subtle shifting of the mountain's weight, the distant sigh of trees bending under snow, the faint, hollow silence that lives between heartbeats. This silence is not empty. It is full of all those who have passed through before. The keeper remembers them not by name, but by rhythm, by the way their fear sounded when it first arrived, and the way it softened when the lantern drew near. Some travelers had walked quickly, eager to escape the heights. Others had lingered, reluctant to leave the strange comfort of the night road. Each had carried something unseen.
Each had left lighter than they arrived.
The keeper lifts the lantern slightly, testing its balance.
The flame responds, brightening just enough to cut a narrow path through the falling snow.
The road behind them curves upward, disappearing once more in shadow. There will be others. There are always others. The keeper turns and begins to walk. Their steps are unhurried, perfectly measured. The lantern swings in a slow, patient arc, casting light that does not demand attention, only offers it. Snowflakes drift through the glow, appearing briefly before vanishing again, like thoughts that arise and dissolve without effort. As the keeper climbs, the air grows thinner, quieter. The wind hums softly along the ridgeline, not as a warning, but as a companion. The path narrows, but the keeper does not falter. They know every curve, every subtle change in the stone beneath the snow. They have walked this road in every season. They have walked it when the stars burned sharp and close, and when clouds pressed low enough to touch. They have walked it in storms that erased all direction, and in nights so still that even memory seemed to hold its breath. Tonight is gentle. The mountain rests, a familiar marker. A weathered post half buried in drifted snow. The keeper pauses. They lift the lantern and rest it upon the post, letting its glow spill outward. The light reaches the surrounding stones, the frozen grass, the narrow line of the road stretching into darkness. For a moment, the pass looks almost welcoming. The keeper closes their eyes. Behind their lids, the night continues, lanterns from long ago flickering through memory. Voices never spoken aloud, travelers whose faces blur but whose presence remains. None of it weighs heavily. It simply exists, like the mountain itself. After a while, the keeper opens their eyes again. The lantern is lifted.
The road resumes.
Somewhere far below, a door closes gently. A fire is stoked. A traveler removes their boots and exhales, unaware of how close they came to being lost. Up here, the lantern keeper continues on. They will walk until the night grows pale at the edges, until the snow thins, until the mountain decides the road no longer needs light. And when dawn comes, slow and uncertain, the keeper will extinguish the flame, not as an ending, but as a promise. For when darkness returns, the lantern will be lit again, and the path will wait. The mountain does not announce its endings. It does not mark them with sound or sign. It simply loosens its hold. The lantern keeper walks alone again, the traveler's footsteps already absorbed into the soft memory of snow. The path behind them feels lighter now, as if the night itself has exhaled.
Each step forward carries less weight than the one before it, and the silence that follows no longer presses against the back.
The lantern swings in an unhurried arc. Its glow no longer presses outward, no longer pushes against the dark. Instead, it rests within it, a quiet companion rather than a shield. The flame has learned the rhythm of the mountain, and the mountain, in turn, has learned the patience of the flame. The forest begins to thin. Tall cedars stand farther apart now, their branches no longer leaning inward, no longer forming corridors of shadow. Snow rests gently on their needles, undisturbed, as if nothing has passed this way for a very long time.
The air feels wider here, less watchful, less intent.
Above, the sky opens. Clouds drift slowly, revealing stars dulled by distance and cold, their light ancient and patient. They do not flicker.
They do not hurry.
They simply remain, as they always have, watching paths that rise and fall beneath them. The moon sits lower now, softened by a veil of thin mist. Its light spreads across the snow like breath on glass, blurring edges, smoothing distance. It watches without judgment, as it has watched countless crossings before. The keeper pauses, not because the road demands it, but because stillness feels appropriate. They lift the lantern slightly, allowing its glow to touch the snow ahead. The path is clear, not sharply defined, but gently suggested, as though the mountain is guiding by trust rather than command. Stones beneath the snow lose their sharpness here. The ground no longer tests the foot.
It accepts it.
This is where the pass begins to forget itself. Here the wind quiets, no longer tugging at cloth or breath. It moves softly now, like a hand smoothing wrinkles from a resting surface. Snow falls thinner, flakes drifting rather than descending, landing without sound, settling into the earth like memories choosing where to sleep. The lantern keeper senses it. The work of the night is nearly complete. They lower the lantern once more and continue, steps slow and even. With each movement, the light grows softer, less insistent. The flame no longer strains against the cold. It burns calmly, confidently, as if it knows it will not be needed much longer. The keeper's breath matches the rhythm of the walk.
Inhale, exhale.
Each breath feels less like effort and more like continuation. The mountain listens, then slowly turns its attention elsewhere, to distant ridges, to valleys still holding snow, to paths not yet walked. Behind them the pass fades, not vanishing, but folding inward, becoming part of the night once more. Snow drifts across the stones, softening their memory. The narrow places widen, the steepness relaxes.
What once demanded guidance now allows passage without it.
Ahead, the path stretches gently downward. It leads toward places where lanterns are optional, where light waits instead of leads, where warmth exists without effort, and doors open without asking who approaches. The keeper does not hurry. There is no need. They have learned that the mountain releases travelers only when it is ready, and tonight it has chosen quiet generosity. The night no longer watches with expectation. It settles, content, having guided one soul safely through.
The lantern swings lower now. Its glow brushes the snow rather than the trees, tracing soft curves along the path.
The flame remains steady, not because it must, but because it wishes to. It has no urgency left within it. The keeper walks on. Each step carries less sound, less imprint. Even the snow seems reluctant to remember them. Footprints soften almost as soon as they appear, edges blurring, depth fading. Soon there will be no sign at all, and when the lantern finally rests, whether extinguished or simply set aside, the mountain will already be quiet again, preparing itself for another night, another crossing, another gentle passage through its long, patient dark. The road continues, but it no longer asks to be followed. It slopes downward with a gentleness that feels intentional, as though the mountain itself has decided that guidance is no longer required. The path no longer twists or resists. It opens smooth and patient, allowing each step to fall where it wishes. Snow thins beneath the keeper's feet, revealing earth that has already begun to remember warmth, even while winter still lingers above it. The sound of walking grows softer, not because the keeper walks more lightly, but because the mountain listens less closely now. Each footstep dissolves into the quiet almost as soon as it is made, leaving no echo, no insistence that it ever occurred. Movement becomes something that happens briefly, then passes. The lantern's glow widens as the path descends. Its light is no longer narrow or searching. It does not probe the darkness ahead, nor does it cling tightly to the ground. Instead, it spreads outward in a slow, patient bloom, touching stones, roots, and the low edges of grass that wait beneath winter's final breath. The flame grows softer, not weaker, simply less focused. It responds gently to the keeper's movement, swaying without resistance, as though it understands that it is no longer needed to lead. This is not the light of vigilance. This is the light of arrival.
The forest gradually opens into a shallow clearing, round and quiet, shaped like a bowl cradled by the slopes on all sides.
Snow lies smooth and untouched here, its surface reflecting moonlight in pale, silvery tones. No footprints mark its surface.
No wind disturbs its calm.
The trees remain at a respectful distance, standing still at the clearing's edge as though they, too, recognize this place. The lantern keeper stops. There is no sign to mark this clearing, no shrine stone, no torii gate, no name spoken aloud, yet it feels deeply familiar, as if many have arrived here before, guided not by maps or memory, but by a shared understanding that cannot be taught. The keeper lowers the lantern until it rests just above the snow.
The flame steadies. Time loosens.
Above, clouds drift slowly across the moon, dimming and revealing its light in gentle cycles. Each passing veil feels unhurried, as though the sky itself is breathing. Stars blink patiently through the gaps, distant and unconcerned, holding their places without effort. Somewhere far below, water moves quietly. It carries the night forward without question, shaping itself around stone and shadow alike.
The lantern keeper exhales.
Not a sigh of weariness, but one of completion. The work of guiding has ended, not because the road has vanished, but because it no longer requires a hand to illuminate it. The flame does not go out. Instead, it softens further, its edges blurring into the pale light of the clearing. Shadow and glow blend until they are no longer separate things, merely different ways of being present. The keeper remains still. Breath slows.
Thoughts thin. The mountain responds.
Snow begins to fall again, but more slowly now. Each flake drifts downward with unhurried grace, landing without sound. They gather gently, layering stillness upon stillness, smoothing even the memory of movement. There is no need to move again tonight. The lantern has found a place where it may simply exist. The keeper's hand loosens its grip, not releasing the lantern, but no longer holding it tightly either.
The flame hums softly, a sound felt rather than heard, like the warmth that lingers in a room after a fire has burned low. The road behind dissolves into shadow,
not erased, only resting. The road ahead waits, patient, kind, and unconcerned with time. It does not demand to be walked, only to be there when needed again. For now, everything settles.
Snow settles, light settles,
breath settles, and the mountain, satisfied, wraps the clearing in silence. It watches without judgment as night deepens, unbroken, unhurried, and whole. The lantern remains where it was placed. Its glow is no longer something that draws the eye. It does not demand attention, nor does it ask to be followed. It simply exists, a quiet presence resting against the vastness of the night. The flame within has softened, its edges blurred, as though it has learned the rhythm of the mountain and chosen to move with it rather than against it. Snow continues to fall, but without urgency. Each flake drifts downward slowly, gently, as if remembering the long journey it has already taken through cloud and sky. Some land upon the lantern's frame, melting at once into faint traces of warmth. Others settle into the surrounding ground, adding to the patient layers that have been gathering throughout the night. The clearing feels wider now. Or perhaps it is the mind that has widened, loosening its hold on boundaries and names. Trees stand quietly at the edge of perception, their forms softened by moonlight and shadow. The path that once passed through this place is still there, but it no longer feels like a road meant to be walked. It is simply a line of memory, resting beneath the snow. The mountain does not speak.
It never has.
Yet within its silence something ancient listens, not with ears but with time itself. The stone beneath the lantern has held weight for centuries of footsteps, storms, the passing of seasons. Tonight it holds only light. Somewhere far below, beyond valleys and ridges, there are villages with names spoken each morning and forgotten each night. Lanterns there flicker behind paper walls, marking hours and meals, beginnings and endings, but the glow does not reach this place. Here only the mountain's own breath remains. The lantern keeper does not move. There is no tension left in the body, no reason to adjust posture or shift weight. The night no longer requires guidance. The road remembers itself. The mountain has learned its shape again, just as it always does when darkness settles fully into place. Even the flame seems to breathe,
in and out, slow,
untroubled. The light wavers slightly, not from wind, but from rest, the kind that comes after long attentiveness. It spreads outward in a gentle halo, touching snow and air-like, until it becomes difficult to tell where the lantern ends and the night begins.
Time loosens here.
Moments stretch softly, dissolving their edges. There is no need to count them. The sky holds steady above, its stars faint behind passing clouds. The moon drifts higher, pale and distant, content to watch without interfering. Snow gathers along the edges of the clearing, reshaping familiar ground into something smoother, quieter. Footprints fade, not erased, but absorbed, welcomed back into the earth without judgment or haste. This is how the mountain keeps its stories.
Not by repeating them,
not by concluding them, but by allowing them to settle, layer by layer, until they become indistinguishable from the land itself. The lantern's glow thins further, spreading into the snow, into the air, into the spaces between thoughts. It does not vanish. It does not dim abruptly. Instead, it becomes gentler, as though sharing itself with everything around it. Light becomes atmosphere. Warmth becomes memory. The clearing grows indistinct, its edges dissolving into moonlight and shadow. Tree and sky blur together. Snow and air exchange places. What remains is not a scene, but a sensation, calm, weightless, unafraid. The mountain remains. The road waits. And somewhere within the stillness, the light rests, no longer guarding, no longer guiding, simply being. There is nothing left to hold in place, nothing left to watch over. Sleep settles softly now. It moves the way snow does, quietly, without announcement. It drifts across the landscape of the mind, covering sharp edges, softening distances. Thoughts slow, then loosen, then gently release their grip.
Breath deepens.
The night holds. Nothing more is needed.